Hello and welcome to our second series of Shadowrun and World of Shadows. This time we're going around in February and we're looking through the Renraku Arcology Shutdown, another classic module of Shadowrun fame, one that I had not experienced before today. So we're going to be experiencing this fresh for some of us. Maybe some of us have gone through this before. We'll hear about that here in a second. But first thing I want to do is get everyone on the same page. We're going to do a little procedure that we call the CATS discussion in the gauntlet, and it basically breaks down four different things: concept, aim, tone, and subject matter to get everyone on the same page. So I'm looking at my notes here. I want to talk about the concept of this game. First of all, we're playing in the Shadowrun world, and without delving into 20 years of meta plot that has been written about the game, because nobody has time for that. Basically, it's a cyberpunk fantasy mashup. That's all we need to really know about the game. We don't need any previous history. So if you are new to Shadowrun or the universe or whatnot, perfectly fine. We're basically blank slate in it. You bring in some facts, and they're facts. But think cyberpunk, think fantasy, stick them together, PB&J. Just to put a fine point on the term Shadowrunner here, again, for people who are unfamiliar, this is basically a freelance corporate operative, right? So you go on missions to either, kill people, kidnap people, rob people, all very ethical and moral things. That's a Shadowrunner, and you do it because you kind of don't have any other choice sometimes, or because you're crazy, or because you're in debt to someone, or all kinds of reasons why you come up with justifications so you can sleep at night. I want to talk about the Renraku Arcology. Again, I don't want to give a big info dump for everybody because nobody got time for that. Basically, an arcology is a construction of basically a city in a building. Okay, this has everything that every happy Renraku employee might need to live their day-to-day lives. There's a shopping mall. There's restaurants. There are bathrooms and residential areas. You live here, you work here, you play here, and therefore you don't need to go anywhere else and spend any of your Renraku Corp script on any other company. And also, due to this being this dystopic future, the corporation gets to control all the rules and laws while you're within their extraterritorial property. So basically, Renraku is your life when you live in the arcology. But for the most part, life is good, right? It really is convenient. It really is safe, right? There's corporate security here to keep an eye on any undesirables, right? Yeah, hard to complain. Much less likely to be kidnapped and extracted by Shadowrunners. But little hiccup with that. About 2 weeks ago, everyone hears about this quarantine and shutdown on the Renraku Arcology right before Valentine's Day. Okay. So there were a lot of people who were at the mall shopping, getting something for their special someone when this whole thing shut down. For 2 weeks, people have been trying to figure out what the situation is. We're getting a lot of mumbo jumbo and sort of, half-baked stories from conspiracy theorists. News outlets are trying to keep everybody calm. Everybody's trying to keep a lid on this situation while things are developing. There's been some news about some fights that have broken out, some explosions being heard near the arcology, but so far the situation is contained. No real reason brought out by anybody yet. Just a lot of promises and well-wishing from Renraku. Although the CEO has stepped down for personal problems and is now on vacation. So something going on in the arcology. Nobody really knows. Maybe we'll find out today or by the end of this month. What else is on my list? That's basically the concept. Just, like meta talk wise, this module, right? This way it's presented, it's actually kind of presented like a mega dungeon. Okay. This was designed to be a mega dungeon for Shadowrun. Now, this is where we're kind of getting the aim. Mega dungeons are sort of designed as like campaigns, longer term campaigns where you kind of go through and your whole campaign is within a dungeon, so to speak, right? In fantasy terms. We have 4 sessions to come to a satisfying conclusion. So I'm going to treat this less like the mega dungeon that it could be and more like the dungeon it's going to be, right? We're going to use a custom move to sort of help pace things out. But basically, we're going to try to get to a conclusion for it. 4 sessions. The GM advice in the back of the book says that, like, basically your players should maybe never even meet the bad guy. I'm like, that's a little ridiculous for me. I want that confrontation. So that might happen. You might die. We might make new characters. That sort of stuff will happen. But we're going to keep it to 4 sessions. I want to try to keep each session to 3 hours as well, to respect everyone's time. Tone. I want to talk about that. In Shadowrun terms, there's sort of this spectrum that has been popularized. On the one hand, you have what's called pink mohawk. Okay, this is sort of very zany, lots of explosions, lots of, not thinking about collateral damage or consequences, right? Everybody's got crazy hair, even though you're supposed to be like a secretive shadow operative. You still wear like your leopard print coat and right, and your neon whatnot. I find that stuff to be a lot of fun, right? And I don't want to necessarily exclude that stuff. Whereas on the other side, we have what's known as mirror shades. And this is basically Andrew's returning character Sharper in a nutshell. Okay. Mirror shades and trench coats is what, you kind of think of, right? This is all grim and serious, and we're on a mission and we're super spies. That can be a lot of fun too. But sometimes all of the paranoia that kind of comes into play with that can bog things down a little bit. So I kind of want to slide back down from there a little ways towards that pink mohawk, just to keep the action and the story flowing. But I will say, this is a sort of grim, a horror module, if you would, Renraku Arcology Shutdown. So there's going to be some kind of disturbing things, right? So think about that on the spectrum. We might kind of fluctuate a little bit, but somewhere in between. Okay. Talking about grim and the horror stuff, I do want to talk about subject matter. Okay, there is some stuff in this book that is kind of disturbing, kind of gross, kind of maybe pushing some lines and some boundaries. So I want to talk about some of the things that could be present. We're going to see mass civilian casualties as sort of a hallmark of this, right? In the U.S., we've had a lot of mass shootings in recent history, and that's something that can be kind of, cutting close to people's experiences there. So I want to be respectful of that. And we also have brainwashing happening. We have body horror happening. We have violence even towards children can be part of things. So when I talk about these things, I want you all to know that we have some safety tools in place for the Gauntlet's policies that make sure that even as we're telling stories like this, that we can respect each other as people and respect each other's emotional and mental health and safety while this is happening. So one thing that we do is put these content warnings on the label, so to speak. So if you think that this kind of story is not for you, you know ahead of time not to sign up for this. If you have signed up for it, in spite of that, still want to make sure that you guys are safe. So we use the X card as a safety tool. Um, if you are familiar with it, even if you aren't, I'd like to break it down a little bit. Anytime we come across any sort of subject matter that is uh, basically uncomfortable in an unfun way, right? In a way that's impeding your fun or making you want to back out, right? You can call the X card on that. You can say out loud X card. You can put an X up with your hands on the camera. Uh, you know, I do have little squares of you here on the bottom, so I want to make sure that I can see you when you say that. Basically, what we're going to do then is excise that material that we just discussed from the narrative. We're not going to go there. This can be as simple as I introduce an NPC with the name Catherine, right? Maybe that's a trigger for you. You say, hey, I'm going to X card that name. Say, fine, we'll come up with a different name. Now she's Karen, or Tabitha or Jim, right? Now, we respect each other here, right? So if you tell me that, I'm not going to say, oh, gosh, it's just a name or anything like that, right? We need to have utmost respect for each other. And that can mean maybe I say, well, you start to have a hallucination because of these neurotoxins that have been injected into you. And now you're imagining you're all covered in spiders. Maybe you have a real phobia of spiders. You say, I want to X card that, right? I can't be like, oh man, you're just trying to get away with whatever, No, you tell me we X card that. Maybe I'll say, okay, anybody else at the table, what do you think would be a better thing here? What would be more appropriate here? Maybe we'll take a 5-minute break and we can think about stuff. Don't want you to feel uncomfortable with using that X card. It's on the table. Okay. With that in mind, we'll also be taking breaks. I like to take a break at least halfway through so that we can address our biological needs, get refills, whatever it may be. Also, if the content is just getting a little much for you, you can step away, right? You can step away for 5 minutes. You can step away for the rest of the game. I respect you. I'm not going to be upset about that. Make sense? Yep. You call for a break. Tell me you need to step out. You just step out. It's all good. Okay. Everyone feel comfortable and supported with those in play? See the thumbs up and nods. Arthur, is that good for you?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. One final tool that we'll use here, lines and veils. Okay. Lines are hard lines on material that we don't want to see in the module or in the game. So I'm going to put right now a hard line on sexual assault. There's lots of other gross stuff happening in here. I don't want to see any sexual assault. That basically means that will not come up in the story at all. Anybody else have any hard lines that they don't want to see? Think about that for a second. I want to talk about veils also. Veils are a similar sort of thing, except it's something we don't see on screen, right? A common veil is like romance and sex, right? So like it's okay if you like see the door close or you fade to black, something like that. It can be present in the story, but I don't want to have a discussion about it, right? So I want to put a veil on torture. Torture is something that is present in this module for sure, but I don't really want to like dive into the nitty gritty about like drills being stuck into your skull or anything like that. Okay, I'll say you're being tortured with faded black, whatever. Anybody else have any veils on that sort of thing or lines that they would like to put on the table ahead of time?
I guess I have a question about the veil on torture. Not that I was planning it, but sometimes I feel like what happens is a group of adventurers or shadowrunners will take someone prisoner, and then they'll try to interrogate. Right.
Right.
Would you rather, with a veil on torture, is the idea that we should steer away from that content altogether, or we just fade to black? It's like, okay, we lock them in the room with Sharper, and we come back later.
Right. Yeah. What did he tell you? Is what we would do. Sharper's not going to be like, okay, so I tie his hands down. I don't want to have that discussion. But it's okay if it's in the story.
Okay. I can't think of any other veils that. I mean, like I think the if there's like sexual relations or anything like that. I'm super fine with like fade to black and then they're smoking cigarettes or something.
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing.
I don't know if we'll have any time for fraternization.
Are you sure between the torture and the mass civilian casualties?
You might need to find some comfort in someone's arms. But I'm totally cool with putting a veil on that. That's totally fine with me too. Okay. And if this changes or if things come up in the story that you want to talk about, we can bring that up to next session. We can make sure, basically the point is, I want to respect you guys as people, not just as founts of storytelling and fiction. We're all human beings. Okay, we've got all that out of the way. Now let's talk about characters and World of Shadows. Who here is familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse games?
I am.
Okay, so World of Shadows is a hack of World of Dungeons, which is a hack of Dungeon World. It's kind of adopted from Apocalypse World. So it's got some of the same DNA. Basic premise with World of Shadows is you have one move, which is similar to Dungeon World's Defy Danger. Basically, whenever there's something risky or uncertain here, where your abilities are coming into play, right? We're going to roll dice. We're going to roll 2d6, and we're going to sum the results. We will add a modifier based on a certain stat you have. Okay, and we'll cover over the stats here in a second. But you're going to look at the results. A 6 minus from that, it's going to be a failure. It's going to be a consequence. A 7 to 9, it's going to be sort of a mixed result, right? Maybe you succeed in some ways, but just failure in others. There's some success, but there's also consequence, something like that. 10 plus is a full success. No further complications. You achieved what you set out to do. But we have some little things that you being a cool guy affect. Number one is skills. So when we look at your characters, I'm actually going to just present the characters sheet here up on the screen. And Arthur, did you have any success with getting that open at all?
I didn't. It keeps just bringing me to essentially one within a window, so I can't edit it or anything. But I've got 2 printed sheets here, so I can just kind of during the week try and you and I can figure out how to get it online, and I can just do a hard copy for now.
Well, I think what I'll do, since I'm going to go ahead and kind of share this screen here, which right now is infinite Hangout windows.
Oh no!
You're all going off into oblivion. I will show the character sheet here, and while we do your character, Arthur, we can type it into the screen here.
Great.
Cool.
Perfect.
Awesome. So we already see Sharper is filled out here with Andrew's character. Sharper's returning from our last series. Very happy to see him. Very happy to see Andrew back, of course, as well. But we can kind of look through there and as an example. So very first tab we see here, right, or very first cell, this is your character's name. We're talking here about your Shadowrun handle, your Shadowrunner's handle, right? Andrew's character's real name isn't Sharper, but that's what he goes by. So you need to think of a cool kind of Shadowrunner name. We don't have to think about that first, but that's one thing to think about. Next you'll see is class, okay? Now, the World of Shadows PDF includes about 6 classes. But the thing about a class is it's just a name in World of Shadows. You'll see here I have a list of, I think, exactly 100 different classes you could be.
I've never seen that much. I only have the basic ones.
There's an awesome blog called BX Black Razor that I stole these all from.
BX Black Razor. Yeah.
Basically, the idea is to illustrate that you can be anything when it comes to your class, right? It is only serving as sort of a indication for everyone what it is that your character does. And you kind of get to define that. So with a class comes skills and abilities. Skills, here we have the core ones that are listed. If you think of a different one that you'd really like to have, like maybe translation or something like that, right? You can go ahead and include that, but you can definitely look to these skills as basic ones. The cool thing about a skill, for example, let's say awareness, right, is that anytime your awareness is coming into a roll, like we discussed earlier, you can't actually fail. If you get a result of a 6-, your awareness is going to bump that up to the same result as a 7 to 9. If you get a 7 to 9, it's going to bump it up to a 10, right? Maybe not as good as a natural 10, but still pretty good. So think about your skills that you might have as that class. Abilities are a little bit different. These are special things about your character that give you special abilities, okay? For example, hack. You can attempt to control any computer or break past digital security to access protected contents, right? That's something you can do, something only you can do. If you look at the data tab here on the right, you're going to see a list of all these abilities here in column D and what they do, because sometimes by the name, it's not always clear. So also think about that when it comes to your class. So you can either look at a couple cool abilities that you want. Say you want to have illusion ability and ambush, right? Okay, so you can call this, maybe you're like an illusion adept or something like that, right? Who knows? Or you can think of a class you want to be, like I want to be the biker brawler, and you can think about, okay, well, if I'm the biker brawler, maybe I have like cool cyber limbs, right? Or maybe I have like evade. I can ignore the results of a damage roll because I'm all evasive. However you come to that conclusion, it's up to you. Other ways your character is defined in the rules, we're looking at these 6 stats here. Body, quickness, strength, intelligence, charisma, and willpower. So the classic world, I better not go back to infinity. The classic method of modifier generation in World of Shadows is rolling 2d6 down the line. However, I do not find that to be absolutely necessary. What I'll have you do is roll 2d6 and use that result, and you can apply it to any one of your 6 that you want. So we'll still roll 6 pairs of d6, but you can assign them how you like. Or you can just do it randomly if you don't know what you want to be, and then you can think about that from there. So the way that works is this: you do the 2d6 roll, and if you get a 6-, your modifier is a 0, like so. If you get a 7 to 9, your modifier is a +1, like so. 10 plus is a 2, and if you happen to get boxcars, lucky you get a 3. So y'all can start generating those. If you have your own dice at home, you can roll those. I trust you. Otherwise, you can use roll for your party. Now, Aaron, earlier you had mentioned you were unfamiliar with the roll for your party website. Is that what you want to use, or would you rather use physical dice?
I mean, I'd rather use the electronic thing. I don't have a lot of space up here for dice around my keyboard.
Let me go ahead and talk about that a little bit for you then, so you can have access to that.
And we can roll for our things now?
Yes, go ahead and start generating those. Ooh, I love the sound of rolling dice. Okay. Here I'm presenting the Roll for Your Party resource, an awesome website created by Shane. It's very helpful. You'll see here this row. Can you see that?
Yeah.
This is basically where you're going to get some of your actions started. If you see the box to your left is going to be the number. D6 is what we're going to be rolling here, but the D6P you can use too. If you prefer pit dice, that's all up to you.
What's
type
the
in the
difference
number
between
2.
dice and pit dice?
The pip dice have little dots, and the other ones just have numbers. You can put a number there. You can select a color if you want, and hit submit.
I did it.
I'm going to unclick sort dice because that's confusing. I recommend usually picking a color to roll with them because sometimes they get all mixed up like this. Of course, my first roll is a failure. But you got a 9 there, right?
Yeah.
And you can, if you click on you can click and drag these dice around if you want to. You can add a label even.
Oh, that's really satisfying.
Oh, good.
Is it?
Good to hear.
Do you want us to keep the numbers as in the actual roll, or just put in the
modifier.
+1 0?
Yeah,
just the modifier.
Just put in the modifier.
We don't need to keep like Dungeon World. You keep it and increases later on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess as we level up, or is it it's not gonna matter?
Right. It's just the modifier.
Got it. All right.
So that's a kind of a nice simplification there. So yep, you can just do that for the modifier. They will. Doing poorly there, bud.
Yeah, I love electronic dice. They're totally great.
I'm sure they're completely random. Not weighted in any way. HP is a little bit different here. We're going to talk about that. The way that HP works in World of Shadows is very old school. It uses hit dice. Okay, so basically what we're going to do after you have your body stat figured out, we're going to roll HP. I'm going to have you all start at level 2. You're not completely new Shadowrunners, but you're relatively new. Sharper, being returning, has a little bit more levels. The way that hit dice work is you have a number equal to your level plus your body modifier. So here we see Sharper's level 4, and he has a body of 1. That means he actually has 5 hit dice. I'll go ahead and stick that in there for you, Sharper. But because he's level 4, he's going to roll all 5, but he only keeps a number equal to his level. And that is your current HP.
I'm not sure how you get 5, because you get 1 at level 1, 1 at level 2, and 1 at level 4, and I have a body of 1.
Oh, is it not equal to your level?
You get to keep a number of dice equal to your level.
Oh, but
that may not be the number that you have to roll.
Oh, I did not look closely enough at the rules.
So like if I had 3 body, 4, 5, 6, I'd be rolling 6 dice and I could keep 4 of them. But for weedy little Sharper, he's got 4 dice and I keep 4 of them.
But at level 2, you still have 2 hit dice plus body?
Right.
Okay. Well, cool. That applies for these guys at least. So let me just go ahead and I'll start messing with Arthur's character here, since we kind of got some ideas. Arthur, have you gotten results on your stats here yet while you're filling them out?
Yeah, I did. It's +1 across the board, actually.
Oh. No weaknesses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roll your whatever.
I'm sure it's better than average. Okay, so since you are level 2 and you have a body of 1 +1,
right,
you need to roll 3d6, and you want to keep the 2 highest.
All right, it's a 6 and a 4.
Oh, nice, not bad. You start out with at least 10 HP. There is an ability that will let you get more if you need it, but so your 10 HP is your current HP. If you find a chance to rest and recuperate after you've been poked and prodded a bit, we're going to basically re-roll hit dice.
Okay.
And hopefully it'll be more, and you'll recover.
So my hit dice is 3 total, right?
3 to roll, 2 to keep. And that changes as you level up. The ARM here I have is for your armor. So depending on how much armor you have on you, it's a little reference there. Armor just reduces damage that's incoming.
Right.
And there's your damage cell. that is just a little reference to your primary weapon's damage.
Okay.
So, like, let's say we're looking at Sharper has his katana probably with him, right? So
Yeah, if you go to the bottom of gear, I've got some math there.
cool. So here we see his katanas, d6 plus 2. You know, yeah, he has lots of different weapons, but you can put in there for damage your primary weapon's damage just as a reference for you. Okay. KRM.
That's why I put my hit points in there, because there's nowhere for hit points.
Well, that's where I put the HP. I just put current instead of the hit die number, but I might want to change that because you pointed out that rule about hit dice to me. Karma is kind of like your experience in World of Shadows. So that's going to be, I have to double check what your base number is. We can worry about that once we start getting more. Okay. So let's see here. Aaron, have you thought about your character class here a little bit? I see we have some stuff going on.
I think I'm going to do a street shaman of like the rat or something.
Ooh, very cool.
Yeah, we were talking about Arthur. I think Arthur has some ideas, and I feel like I like someone from the Barrens rolling in and being like, "What's an arcology and how's this all working out?"
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be super cool. I like that juxtaposition there, especially when you see some of these people are in distress, and you're like, "Should I help these privileged people or not?"
Yeah.
Very cool. And thank you for the tip there, Andrew, about starting Karma. Okay, back to presentation. I just feel too weird just looking at my screen and talking for too long. Okay. Back to this. Okay, so we're going to start with 10,000 Karma. Personally, I kind of want to just divide all these numbers by 100, but that's the OS, the classic way, right?
Cool.
So we have Aaron, who's going to be a cool Orc Street Shaman. Arthur, what are your thoughts on your character?
Yeah, so I was thinking I really like the rigger class.
Okay.
Just straight human.
Human rigger. Let's type it in. A human rigger. Now, one thing I kind of wanted to make sure I touched on here, sometimes when you don't put ethnicity on that character sheet right up in front, people tend to forget about it, and I like to have it on the table. You know, here in Seattle 2060, right, we have a lot of diversity. It's a large urban area, so lots of choices there. What do you think your character's ethnicity is?
I'm thinking he's actually got some Pacific Northwest, like Native American somewhere.
Absolutely.
In the mix.
Very interesting.
He's got like some stories that he probably kind of recalls from when he was little, from his like parents and grandparents and such, but you know, it's more of a general feeling than it is distinct details of the stories.
Very cool. Yeah. Do you have a particular tribe in mind yet?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, let's put Pacific Northwest in there for now. That would be a really interesting detail to kind of to think about in the future. So maybe we come back next section and put a finer point on that.
Cool.
Then here I see, Aaron, you're going with Hispanic for your street shaman's ethnicity. Is that right?
Yeah, probably like refugees from like Aztec, Mexico, or whatever it's called.
Sure,
or something along those lines.
Very interesting. Okay. And Andrew, your ethnicity is indeterminate. So you're like Anne from what's that show?
Well, he just looks like there's a lot going on in there. I mean, he's wrinkled and he's sort of olive colored, and you know, you can inflect that a lot of different ways.
Parks and Rec. That's what I was thinking. You're Anne from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
That's a Leslie Knope makes a joke there. All right, I'm making references too early into this. Okay. So look is something. This is just basically a quick description of your character's appearance. Let's deal with some of the more kind of nitty gritty stuff before we get into that, because that'll put a great bow on your character once we give them a name and a look. Let's talk about skills and abilities here. What sort of skills do you think your rigger has? We have options here like athletics, awareness, deception, drive, heal, info, leadership, repair, and stealth.
Yeah, so
with level 2, you get to pick 2.
And with regards to drive, is that essentially like a kind of a constitution kind of skill, or is that literal drive?
Driving vehicles, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll go with drive.
Okay.
Well, that comes with the class. Or is it 2 plus what comes with the class, or is it 2 total?
So yeah, if you're looking just at the class in the PDF, basically you can just go with what's there, because.
Yeah, I'll take drive, and then I'll choose, let's say, like awareness.
Sure. Now, I like to include in drive, if you're operating a drone, that's drive 2. It doesn't have to be a 4-wheeled vehicle or.
Great.
So if we go with the core rulebook, which is 2 pages,
yeah.
What abilities from their options there did you want to choose for your rigger?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with definitely go with control.
Cool.
For sure.
That's the remote control of drones and vehicles.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't need to necessarily detail what technology is involved there, but we know you can do it with your mind. And then what additional ability did you want?
And I'll actually take drones as well.
Perfect. Love me a drone rigger. Okay. So right now we know that you have 2 useful VR controlled robots. One is a small flying recon drone. One is a treaded combat drone. So it's got the treaded wheels and a little gun, right? Or a big gun. Cool. Sharper, you are a slick street samurai. We know that you already have athletics, stealth, and deception. Additionally, you have dermal plating. I'm assuming this is one of your implants, right? Gives you +1 armor.
Right.
And then you have cyber limbs, +2 melee damage. Now, as a cool street samurai who's been through Chicago, you have had a little bit more experience than the next guy, so you actually have gained an additional ability after level 3, which is yours is a custom one that you came up with your character, and I love doing that for characters. It's really easy. You went with Cyber Bushido, which is +1 to hit and damage with your daisho or your longbow. So if anybody, when it comes time to level up and you have a very particular ability that you have in mind, talk to me about it, and we'll definitely get it on your sheet. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okie dokie. And then let's talk about Aaron's character real quick. You went with the street shaman. You went with conjure as an ability. It's calling forth a spirit from the astral realm. What does that kind of look like for your rat shaman? I'm curious.
I think it's a lot about like forgotten spirits of man, right? It's not. I'm not conjuring spirits of the wild, right? You're not going to see like a manifestation of like a coyote or something as much as you're going to see stuff like the spirit of a subway, or like the spirit of like sewers and stuff, like the spirit of a forgotten sanitation. Or something like that. There's a lot of especially in the year 2060, right? Cities have been growing and growing, and there's a lot of like forgotten will and effort like embedded in the city itself that you can call upon. And I wouldn't be surprised if like if we're in the arcology or whatever, my shaman might try to like summon something like spirit of the forgotten worker or whatever, or the betrayed worker or something. Or something along those lines. I'm looking at skills and abilities, and I mean, we have a rigger, so maybe it's not that important. But I was for my second ability, I was maybe thinking hack, and maybe I'm a shaman who's gotten a bit too far away from my magic origins, or maybe that's not important for a group. I don't know.
Well, because I was going to be steering more towards, like a drone racing kind of thing. So I would say I'm not going to be trying to, get hacking too many systems. You know what I mean? Vehicle would be my specialty.
For sure. I will say this adventure in particular is geared a little bit more towards technology, just by the nature of it. So having a little bit of a technological capability certainly will be useful, but might also tie you to the story in a more direct way.
I feel like my character is really curious. And so like maybe, and hack would definitely be something that would like probably let me answer some questions he has or whatever.
Yeah. Well, curiosity killed the cat, but nobody knows what it did for the rat. So and I can definitely envision you talking about your character as a shaman of like the streets, right? This is definitely like the sort of magic that you see happening in like the future or even contemporary times, right? So also being included in technology doesn't seem too far afield. So when you have hack as an ability is what you're thinking here, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, and maybe it's even that I don't necessarily have like a jackport somewhere on my body. Maybe I haven't taken that step yet, but I have like a large apparatus for some virtual delving.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
I don't know, like cursory glancing, I'm thinking of like the weird mesh net that you can put on your head or whatever, or something like that. Or most of the time I would try to get it done with just the keyboard. But if I come against any sort of defenses, I'm probably going to have to suit up or something.
Very interesting.
How cool would it be to have like an enchanted rat familiar that's got the equivalent of USB capability in its throat? And it just like runs around in the system, and then it can plug into things, and then you're connected to it.
I'd say 100% super cool, but I'm going to leave that up to you.
I think I may be letting. I've read a little bit of Shadowrun before, and so I may be like letting that past reading influence me, because in past readings it seemed like magic and technology are sort of like opposites or whatever. But and maybe like that's like my final form, right? It's like my spirit avatar has USB capabilities or whatever, but I'm not sure I'm there yet. I haven't found a way to like join my two traditions together, and right now it's more like a conflict within my character.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I like that. I like that sort of forward thinking. It'll be a cool kind of arc to perhaps see, or to twist against you. We'll see how you roll. Because the cool thing is, on a 6-, I can do whatever I want. So maybe you will get a data jack installed.
So there's no skill for fighting, right?
For fighting? Well, not technically. I think it's a little bit telling that they don't have like fighting listed as a skill. It's something you can't fail at.
Yeah.
But like we look at Sharper. I could see Sharper having a skill of fighting. He cannot lose in a fight. But there's other circumstances that could lead to issues, right? And there's always a potential for a consequence, even if you don't fail outright. Do you want a skill of fighting? Is that why you ask?
I'm noticing that, I guess. I think mine, if I had a skill, it would be something like Greaseman or something, right? Like, I feel like even though I'm an orc, I'm kind of small, and I could fit into like ducks or like do like some acrobatics to get through things if need be, or something along those lines. I don't know if that would fall under athletics or if we want to call it something else.
Well, it sounds like it's geared particularly towards contortionism and
like tight spaces and stuff.
Like you wouldn't be good at, say, running and jumping through an obstacle course necessarily.
I don't think he would win a marathon. I think he might be able to scale a ledge or something. But it's never about speed. It's just about entry.
Sure. Yeah. Well, go ahead and apply a noun or verb that you think is most equivalent, and we'll keep that in mind. Cool. Well, that means you're gonna have to find a hidey hole. Interesting. Okay. When it comes to abilities, whatever ability you choose, you have everything you need in order to use that ability. You don't need to necessarily buy that stuff. So, going back to you, Arthur, when we see your rigger, right? You mentioned maybe he's kind of like a racing oriented fellow.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm so we're talking about kind of like gear or kind of his background.
A little bit of gear. Let's look at this control here, right? You have the
Yes.
ability to remote control drones. What gear, augmentations, implants, whatever do you have that gives you that ability?
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is one of my eyes is um, is a fake eye. It's like a cyber kind of implement. And that's how I can see through the drones, like when I activate that eye.
Yeah. Cool.
And
So it's an implanted type thing.
yeah.
Okay.
And then for like the drones themselves, I'm thinking like the small flying drone is maybe the size of like imagine like an iPhone, but you can like I basically can like kind of toss it in the air, and then like the four kind of struts come out with the propellers, so it's kind of like folds into like the size of an iPhone, and then like the propellers, four kind of quadcopter propellers come out the side. And,
awesome.
it's about that big.
What is the name of that product line?
Of the it's called the DJI SEMA line.
Cool. Okay, and then tell me a bit about your treaded combat drone.
Yeah, so this is something I got black market.
Ooh.
It's like a post-military kind of treaded drone, and it essentially kind of fits into like onto like a frame, like backpack almost that I have, and then it kind of can like just I kind of can like just release it off my back, and it hits the ground and kind of gets on its treads and goes. So it's not a real big treaded drone, and it can't really it doesn't carry a big armament. That's kind of something I wanted to ask you about. What are you thinking? Like, does it come with a weapon already on it?
Well, it's a combat drone, and that's all they tell us. So
Yeah.
you tell me how it engages successfully in combat. Does it have razors, or guns, or grenades? What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm thinking it has an assault rifle kind of on it, built into it, and then an attachment point for, I can attach some sort of like arm to it or like other kind of implements, but the assault rifle is kind of like always part of it.
Very cool. I like how your rigger is definitely someone who's like going into the place with everyone, right? This isn't the guy out in the van. This is you're going in there with your drones.
Yeah, he's kind of like an adrenaline junkie. That's kind of what I'm envisioning.
Yeah. So when you're controlling your drones in Shadowrun, there's kind of two ideas. You have this remote control kind of thing. This is kind of like operating an RC car.
Yeah.
And then there's the hopping in. This is where you basically become the drone. You're feeling the systems as if it's parts of your body. When you're in your flying drone, you feel like you're flying. Right? All of your brain senses are sort of adapted to the sensors of the drone, so you're sort of embodying it. Which usually tends to kind of put your body on a lockdown mode.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think I'm thinking like when I was doing like the racing circuit for different corporations or whatever, I tried to take every advantage I could get. So it's definitely like built into my brain. There's different circuitry that's already been implanted, and I become that drone, but like you said, yeah, I kind of like physically become, comatose, paralyzed.
Right. The slang for that is "watch my shoes." That's a little bit more related to astrally projecting mages, but I think it works for this too.
Yeah.
So you take a little nap and you go and race as a car. So gear is something that can be a little bit lengthy when it comes to actual character creation. If you look at the data tab on the character sheet, it does have a list of all the gear from the rule book that you can look through. Basically, what I'm going to say is that I can't remember what our starting budget is, but when it comes up in the fiction, you can introduce that piece of gear, right? You don't have to fill out your budget right now.
Okay.
When you need a gun, I'm sure you can afford a gun. You got a gun. Tell me about your gun, and we can kind of keep track of that.
So we don't actually pick all the gear now, almost like Dungeon World-esque. Like we kind of
if you
stay within budget and then dip into it.
Right, just in the interest of time, right?
Yep.
Because we're a good hour in, so I want to make sure that we get some stuff flying in time. And if you look to here we have listed simple gear on rows 12 and 13. And we also, I thought there was a kit one here, but I guess not. But basically, this is kind of like your Dungeon World adventuring gear, 5 uses or whatever. If all of a sudden you're in a situation like, wow, it'd be really useful to have a gas mask here, you can have brought a gas mask. I'll let you flash back into that. Okay. Oh, speaking of flashback, one thing, well, I guess I can touch on it later. Doesn't apply here. Let's keep rolling with character creation. Is everybody good then with our sort of character sheet type stuff as far as numbers and abilities and choices there?
I went ahead and kept the money I made on the first session last time and figured the rest of it is spent. I also picked up a collapsible longbow with auto-extending flanged monofilament arrows.
Nice.
If that's all right.
Yeah, of course. If it sounds cool, I want you to have it.
It's basically it like folds up. So when you snap it open and shoot the arrow, it does 1d6 plus 2. I got Cyber Bushido says plus 3.
Yeah, for sure. Well, got armored opponents too. But you can tell me about your armor-piercing arrowheads that you managed to acquire too at a later point. Okay, so without further ado, I want to have a little introduction to each character. Now that we know what you can do, mathematically, I want to hear what your character's name is, what they look like, and maybe a little bit of background information on them, just a quick pitch, just so we can get everybody introduced to each other. Andrew, since you already have all this written out and experienced, let's start with you so we can give everybody a chance to formulate that in their minds.
What would you like to know?
Tell me your character's name, what their class is, what they look like, and maybe a little bit of background if you have it.
And maybe why you would hire them.
I have some great established. Oh yes, the elevator pitch, right? The
I mean, swipe right, swipe left of Shadowrunners, right?
I love the fixer Tinder. That's wonderful. Tell us why you should swipe right on Sharper.
Okay, his name is Sharper. He's a street samurai. I am seasoned, unlikely to panic or to make unprofessional moves in the field. I have great experience in not being heard about, which is why you haven't heard about me. And after you hire me, others will continue to not have heard about me. So let's bear that in mind. I'm quiet, I'm efficient, I understand leadership, and I can make difficult decisions.
How do you feel about long walks on the beach?
I assume you see like a bust, so you can see like some armor,
Yeah.
And then he just kind of like stands there for a few seconds. Is the camera off?
Oh man, like the great 80s dating videos that you can uncover on YouTube now. So you've mentioned he's an older gentleman. He has some cyberware. Does he have any other distinguishing physical features?
Bernie Sanders hair.
Oh no.
Other than that, the rest of it's pretty well boxed in,
Yeah, I like how you're
he's
like
a little bow-legged, even though to the best of his knowledge he's never ridden a horse. But
Do you have mirror shades?
No.
Or do you have Ray-Bans, like some like serious?
He traditionally would only take that if it was bright.
Okay.
He doesn't wear them.
Because I just love the idea of like sunglasses and then Bernie Sanders hair.
Yeah.
Like blowing in the
if we
wind.
were actually doing this on a beach, then he would have perma-frown forehead and sunglasses. Yes, but
man, I just can't get this image of Bernie Sanders as like a futuristic cyber ninja out of my head now.
He's got a little more tone than that. I mean, it's more like older Terrence Stamp, but Bernie hair.
Okay, we got it. That definitely crystallizes him in my mind. Well, let's go next to Arthur. Are you ready?
Sure, yeah.
Let's go with you.
Yeah, so the way he looks is he's basically very well dressed, like a three-piece kind of suit with some like functional yet like stylish looking combat / dress boots on. And this suit, it's sharp and it's pressed, but it looks like it's probably the only suit that this guy owns. He really tries to look the part, but it seems like he's kind of fallen on some hard times. And he's like a former drone racer who got a little too deep in with some organized crime. And you can definitely tell that it was likely some sort of punishment or some debts unpaid, because on his left hand he's missing his pinky and ring finger, so he's only got those 3 fingers on the left hand. He's got like a nice groomed beard and long hair on top but shaved sides, and you can see some pretty intense scarring on his temples and back of his head, and the one eye, his left eye, you're not sure if it's fake, but it definitely doesn't look like the other one. It's not quite right. It doesn't quite match up. And his whole kind of vibe is, anything that drives, anything that flies, crawls, that's got some circuitry or mechanical components into it, I'm your man. I'll get that thing moving as fast as it can. And you're going to always want me around because I'm always looking to win. I'm always looking to make a buck.
I love it. And what is his Shadowrun handle? Is it related to his?
Yeah, his name is Synchro.
Synchro, nice. Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Synchro?
Do you know what crime family you got deep in with?
No, I mean, do we know? Like, I don't know if there's some canon stuff, or if
there's like a grab bag of whatever you want. It's sort of amazing. Like if you want the triad, the yakuza, the mafia.
I'm gonna go with like a yakuza kind of vibe. You know what I mean? But like a yakuza corporate kind of group.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or you could go Yakuza Mongolian orcs, and they always meet at smoky restaurants. That could be delicious and delightful.
I like that. Yeah, something like that. Something definitely like some East Asian stuff, like some corporal punishment is the norm kind of group.
Oh yeah. It's just whether they use a cigar cutter or a dice, like a dice katana or whatever. It just.
Yeah, dice.
Otherwise,
yeah, exactly right.
Very cool. All right, and how about you, Aaron? Tell us about your character.
I like to think everyone else has like these nice digital avatars that they went somewhere in, and their bodies were scanned and like put up, and so it's like live form and stuff. And my character's too cheap for any of that. So when you swipe over to like my thing, There's their name, Ratatat, at the top, and a video starts playing, which at this point is very outdated and seems hokey. And it shows me handing like a video camera to like this unseen cameraman. It's like, just hold it like that. Yeah, hold it like that. Okay. And I walk away and then turn around. I got my like tattered little coat, and I'm like, Ratatat. But it's a lot of bravado, and being like, you need to be in somewhere, I can get in. You need to get out of somewhere, I can get you out. I can get out. I know I can talk to the land, I can talk to the buildings, I can talk to the computer. You need info, I got it for you. You need someone to look out, I got eyes, I got 2 of them. And I look like a very small orc. Most orcs are like kind of like bigger than humans or whatever, and I look like I'm malnourished or something. I got like tusks coming up, and my shoulders are kind of scrawny a bit, but I got a lot of energy. Like I'm ready to prove something, and also like in a surprising amount of skills, like willing to do legwork, willing to talk astrally. Like it's the fact that like I seem capable of like on the 3 fronts that might be enticing as a shadowrunner, right? Like I can go astral,
Yeah,
I can go into the virtual, and I can hide in the air duct while you get shot.
that's the only thing that saved you from that hovering swipe left finger. Like, I don't know.
Plus, I'm sure I like undersell everyone because I'm willing to work with so much less. So yeah, I'm like bargain bin, but also like it's actually the good find that you feel like maybe this is the best I'm going to get for the money I have left filling out this team.
Yeah, well, I could see that. So in the future of Shadowrun, magic has returned to the world, and it sort of expresses itself based on people's beliefs, right? What you feel strongly about, what you believe in, whether that's a religion, whether that's part of your cultural traditions, things like that. That's how your magic tends to manifest itself. So I'm curious, what sort of like belief does Ratatat's magic spring from?
It's traditional shamanism. I think there was like my family moved here and was not able to like secure SIN cards to live in the city. So we live out in the Barrens, and we made friends with some of the Native Americans out here. And for those back home, the Barrens are like they build a big wall and then they start dumping garbage on the other side of the wall. It's the ghetto of all ghettos kind of thing. And like one of the things about magic coming back into the world of this crazy like fantasy thing is that like a lot of Native American tribes kind of resurged into power. And they're much more willing to talk to like the people on the margins than like the corporate suits are or anything like that. And so I feel like Ratatat follows the totem of the raccoon, which is sort of like a self-satisfied clever thief kind of thing. But there's also like other totems that can call to me kind of thing. Like like I feel like the totem of the rat, which is what I was going for originally, but it's really just like the worst totem. Like complete coward, take everything for yourself, leave all friends behind kind of thing. That is like the dark side if I fell, right? Is like I might start following the rat. The rat might give me a way out when things get dire, but I don't want to be the rat because no one likes the rat.
But the cat on the other side still has the same stealth, but is all like, you know, about toying with people. So raccoon's a little bit more pragmatic than cat, but not quite as self-serving as rat. Is that what we're seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, they're still kind of smug, still kind of self-satisfied.
Until this moment, I have never thought of the raccoon as being the halfway point between a badger and a rat. So thank you for that.
Amazingly.
You can ascend the badger or descend the rat from here.
Ooh, the totem of the badger. That's for the strong orcs.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I've been giving, like I not a lot of people get it out of the Barrens, and I try to be respectful of the heritage that I'm drawing my power from, but I'm also like I'm inside Seattle now.
Yes.
I'm a shadow runner. I'm trying to get that new yen to pay my rent or whatever. So it's I make do with what I can.
Absolutely. But so you have these traditions and folk tales and stories that have been passed down to you by your grandmother or your parents and things like that. But because you're living here in Seattle, that's sort of adapted to your environment then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, absolutely. Very interesting. So I like this cast of characters. They're super awesome. A little bummed we didn't get Glenn in here, but I'm happy with these guys. And I got love letters out the wazoo to get people in here. So if we get a hold of Glenn for next week, we'll get him in. But again, in the interest of time, right? We have an hour and a half left for us to get things started. I'm fine with that. I've liked this discussion we've had and getting everybody on the same page. But I want to put a little bit of a harder frame on the beginning of our adventure, just so that we can get that ball rolling a bit quicker. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you about who you were hired by. KSAF, Seattle News.
Okay.
Yes. Not the big AAA guys, looking to take advantage of the situation. Oddly enough, you're not hearing a lot of calls from the other corporations to try to get people in here. You'd think that they would want to take advantage of the situation, but that could explain why we have some rat-a-tats and other interesting choices for Shadowrunner involved here. KSAF has hired you because they had actually a news team who was in the arcology before things shut down. Okay. And they want you to go and recover these people, right? And also maybe recover anything that they have found out while they're in the inside, talk about the hot scoop, right? So that's what they've hired you to do. And when we kick things off, we're going to be on the scene with you having found the news van.
Okay.
And things will evolve from there. But what I want to do first is have a few establishing questions I'm going to ask of each of you. And then we're going to take a quick break, take a bio break, and that's going to give you all time to think about your answers to the questions. When we come back after 5 minutes, we can get the answers to those. Cool. So I want to ask Rat-a-tat. You made a deal with the Orc Underground. This is an organization comprised mostly of orcs who are sort of marginalized in this futuristic society just for their metatype. They have
sort of like the Black Panthers of orcs.
Yeah, that's kind of a good way to put it. But one part of the underground part of their name is that they actually have a lot of experience with the sewers and the subway tunnels and things like that they've sort of adapted for their own means. This arcology is shut down like a safe, right? All of the windows have their blast coverings on to protect them, right? The helicopter pad right now is, we'll call it a hot LZ. It's you don't want to go up that way. The front doors are locked. There's actually a subway or a elevated train that actually goes through the arcology. It's shut down. You're not getting in that way. There is a military quarantine outside. And if you manage to get past them, you're going to have to deal with whatever's inside. So the way that you've managed to get in is through the Orc Underground, through some tunnels that connect to the arcology. Probably unaware of. So, you've already made a deal with them as a way to get your way into the arcology. What were you asked to provide as payment for getting out? Think about that.
Okay.
Let's go with Sharper for the next one. Because you're a bit more experienced, you've done a run against Renraku in the past. What were they working on in the research and development labs when you performed that run? Think about that. And finally,
so we're saying this is like in like the last 5 years. We're not talking like before.
Right. This is a newer development. So still hasn't been released. Synchro. I want to know, what is the nature of your relationship with KSAF News correspondent Karen Murphy?
Okay.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we will come back with answers to those questions.
about 2 years ago, I ran a Shadowrun campaign, 3rd edition, and in the book, there's all this little like breadcrumbs about the Renraku Shutdown, like spread throughout the rule book, like very much like, hey, you should buy the Renraku Shutdown adventure path, so you know what's going on. And I'm very excited to see what's going on. I'm also very excited that a news team is hiring us.
Yeah. I hope to be somewhat faithful to the materials, which presented in a pretty cool way, but we'll see. Yes, KSAF News, Seattle.
But it's also nice because it lets you enter with kind of no strings attached in some ways,
right?
Or with not a lot of like corporate level intel.
I feel it fits with our crew right now too.
It does. They blew all their budget on Sharper, and then they bought us.
And then they brought us in with a few bucks remaining, few in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But hey, paycheck's a paycheck.
Oh yeah. You got rent to pay.
Yeah, I'm definitely digging this kind of like World of Dungeons style play. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it worked pretty well for us for our last series here. That's the thing with me with Shadowrun. I've always loved it, but the system has always just seemed too much.
Yeah.
Maybe this is like too far, on the other side, but I like it. I like the minimal thing. It is nice being able to roll 2 d6 instead of 20 d6,
Right.
which is the classic Shadowrun way. Less time counting and math. I double-checked the rulebook while we were away. I'm giving you each a starting budget of 2,000 new yen to use for the gear. Okay. So when it comes time for you, the starting budget is 600 for a level 1 character, which is nice because it makes you limit your choices. But we're level 2. I don't want you to die as quick. So, excuse me. When it comes time for you to say, oh, it'd be good if I had a gun right now, you can subtract that from your budget. You have been promised each 5,000 new yen for the recovery of the KSAF News van and its people, and any recordings that they have. We'll say you each got 1,000 of that up front. Which
how many people are we after?
What's that?
And how many people are we after?
They've told you that there are 4 people in the news van.
4 people, a van and footage for 5,000.
Would you like to negotiate?
Yeah, I mean, either you need to focus the offer or double it. That's a lot.
Roll with charisma.
I love the idea of Sharper taking on this newsman, Mr. Johnson.
I rolled a 10, and my charisma is +2.
Oh, yeah. Fine. We'll double it. But we need you to get this information before any other news outlet does. A rare opportunity here.
I understand your concern. Are you confident that you need the van?
Oh, no. Skip the van. Just what's inside of it.
The contents. Yes. All right. I've modified that offer, and we find it acceptable.
Cool. So, hey, now you have a $3,000 starting budget because you got 2 up front, and you got an 8,000 payday looking at you if you get out.
Also, what you get paid for jobs is experience.
Karma.
Absolutely. So in the traditional first edition Dungeons and Dragons tradition, I said tradition twice, loot and experience are equivalent. So my recommendation, after our experiences in the last series, keep your new yen totals and your karma separate. Because you spend new yen, but that doesn't take away from your karma. So,
and also, you may not get paid until the end of session 4. So,
right, or at all, but so that means since you got your 2,000 new yen up front, thanks to your very excellent negotiator Sharper, go ahead and add 2,000 to your karma total. But we can do more bookkeeping later on, but just something to think about. But I want to hear about your answers to your questions. Sharper, I see you already have some prepared, but if you wouldn't mind kind of reading out or telling us about the research and development for the recording.
Just put down some notes so you guys can listen to me instead of scribbling, in case it matters. Basically, Renraku is working on a Renraku. Well, am I telling them this, or who am I telling this?
I probably ask you a lot of questions. I feel like.
Yeah,
you're telling Aaron and Michael and Arthur and the folks at home.
Why would I tell them this?
Because you're telling
like,
this is the narrative.
He would say, "Can you keep a secret?" So can I. Because part of his whole deal is he doesn't kiss and tell.
Right. So you're keeping this on the down low. That's what you're saying.
Well, cool. Yeah.
So this is the interior monologue as you walk into the new fan.
I just wanted to know if I'm doing it in Sharper's voice or mine. Okay, so my voice.
You have to do it in Sharper's internal voice.
I remembered the time when Project Safe Space, originally designed to be specialized astral treatment to windows so that executives could make safe houses that weren't inside the building. You can make a window damn near indestructible, and if you put your safe house behind it, no matter what happens to the building, your panic room is safe. Well, so that's fine as far as it goes until some bright light figured out how to put another door on it. Now it can be used as an airlock as long as you can stamp a mirror on the other side, so it turns into a doorway. They're in the process of figuring out the military applications, espionage applications, when one of the lead scientists got trapped in an accident where Renraku was using that information as part of their science, figuring out the reaction, the degradation of cellular integrity, the apparent discomfort of the victim, the ability to communicate across discorporated time streams. Well, her uncle hired me and his shaman to go in, resync her up, and get her out of there, and we did. But we didn't slow the program down at all. Presumably, it's healthy.
So it's like
figuring out how to bypass defenses at a arcology near you.
Is this basically a bag of holding?
With a back door so you can hook it onto somewhere else, so you can turn it into an airlock of holding.
Wow. So this is pretty big deal. Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the boundaries are, but I mean...
No, absolutely.
Corp is up to that seemed like a innovative thing.
Well, it's like something you might have to contend with, so...
So it's like a portable safe space, kind of?
Well, the thing is, it's got to be attached to a mirror, and the mirror ideally is stationary, at least for the initial models.
Got it.
But I don't know how far that technology got.
Got it.
So this could essentially be used for teleportation.
If you could attach it to one side and another side, more like hyperspace, more like a Tesser.
But it's magical in nature.
That's the problem. Is it's not. It's technological, so you don't need a shaman. It's inspired by, deriving principles from, but they don't understand how it works. They're just exploring its applications, if that makes sense.
And possible side effects include...
Just like you don't know how an iPod works, but you can listen to it and change the music on it and possibly hook it up to other devices.
Well, I like to think that Steve Jobs knew how an iPod worked.
Right.
It sounds
But
like
I'm just saying
these
that you
people
don't
don't.
have to understand it to use it, is my point.
But you're also saying that the people who are working on it don't necessarily understand the
Well, I mean,
technology.
Sharper's not omniscient on this. He doesn't know how far it goes, but it looked
Okay.
like they were doing a lot of experimentation.
Okay. So Sharper doesn't know. That's cool. Okay.
Because basically the question to me was, what sort of naughtiness were they up to?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm reluctant to nail down all the details of their shenanigans, but it looked like they were in over their head and they were going to open a puzzle box to Cinnabites.
Yeah. And they might need to develop some sort of like supercomputer to like help them research that.
Let's just say that if there is something that lives behind the mirror that looks out at you when you make eye contact,
And what
these
kind of an
bastards might be
effect?
letting it loose.
What kind of effect might it have on an artificial intelligence? Okay.
Well, the question is, what if you could manipulate space-time as an intellectual construct? If this were to create a way to do that, then you would be able to create physical effects that it's possible that the creators of such a thing wouldn't even know about.
Speaking as an impartial observer, this sounds like something you might just want to blow up.
Well, I assume that was going to be the bottom line anyway, right?
Okay, then how about Rat-a-tat? What does the Orc Underground, what are they expecting from you?
So, blank slate, talking about metatypes, right? A couple of years ago, like 25% of the population turned into metahumans, elves, dwarves, orcs, and trolls, and a whole bunch of splat books of other races. And it wasn't that they surfaced, like other humans turned into them. And I believe it continues on today. That when someone is born, they are born human, and then right around puberty, you'll get to see signs of whether or not they're going to turn into a metatype, a metahuman.
So an orc would give birth to a human, but
the small children look like humans, and then like as they reach puberty, they'll get their tusks, or maybe they don't get their tusks, or something like that, where it can lead, like you can have like a human kid born to like orc parents. It's a thing that can happen, or at least we'll say it can. The Japanese really don't like the metahumans in general. Renraku's a Japanese corporation, I believe, if I got that right. The Orc Underground, it's also, the arcology is a company town. People live there, die there, and are also born there, I presume. So that means there, every once in a while, there's a kid that's born that goes orcish or goes trollish, and the corporation likes to keep pristine, like human face on all their things. So where do they take those orc kids? Where do they take the metahumans? And that's what the Orc Underground went sent me in to find.
Nice.
The registrar of like where the kids are being kept. There is like, to them, there is some words that maybe they are kept off-site somewhere else. In Japan themselves, they have an island where they drop all the metahumans and just let them be.
It's a really messed up bit of Shadowrun history.
but there could also maybe be like a room where they're kept and being experimented on. And Rat-a-tat has a kind of pit in his stomach because he feels like they're not kept off-site. That they don't want they're
even kept at all, is what you're saying.
If they're kept at all, right? I think they're used. He thinks they're. I'm not sure how cynical Rat-a-tat is. But me as an impartial person is very cynical about Renraku, and they're probably used up as like experimental material in some way.
Okay. Well, I would say me as Michael, the GM. I am not interested in introducing child massacre, but I do think that Renraku might have, not allow the same opportunities to non-human meta-type children. They're not going to be joining. They're not going to be following mom and dad's footsteps in the, PR and advertisement departments and whatnot, right?
So maybe they're just kicked out of the arcology and kept somewhere or something.
Well, I'd like to leave that a little.
Okay. Yeah, we'll find out.
Ambivalent right now. If that's what the Orc Underground, they want you to find that out before you leave.
And across someone who is an orc who had undergone cosmetic surgery and brainwashing to appear human, and they're wondering if there is a gene therapy kind of program with surgical implants to try to erase other races.
That sounds like something that Renraku might work on. Yeah, I like that.
Just trying to find the middle horrible for us here.
Right. But if Renraku Arcology has been taken over by something else, they might have a different set of ethical or moral standards, and their motives might even be entirely alien in nature. Who knows? Synchro! Oh, did you have a thought there, Andrew?
No, I'm sorry. I found a bug and I need to throw it away real quick, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a real brief thought that if you have the equipment to do gene therapy, cosmetic alterations, and brainwashing, what if somebody got the lab and liked something besides the base human?
I wonder. Okay. Very good. Synchro. What is your relationship with KSAF news correspondent Karen Murphy?
Yeah, and Karen is one of the people that's missing, yeah?
Right.
Yeah, so I used to know her brother. His name was Caleb Murphy. He used to go by the name Cycle. He and I were part of like the same kind of race collective that would race for different corporations. And on one of the races that we were supposed to win, the corporation had a lot of cash riding on it. Didn't pan out the right way, and Caleb lost more than just his fingers. So I know her because her brother, we were partners, and she knows me as the guy who basically got her brother killed.
So I have a feeling you guys aren't on the best of terms.
Yeah, she's not a big fan. Not a big fan at all.
Do you feel any sort of responsibility for that?
I do. Yeah, he was. I kind of brought him into that world. So I'm trying. I think a part of this is, I'm trying to do something to maybe atone for a little bit of the pain I've caused her. Try and see if I can help her out and make sure she's all right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, excellent answers from all of you. Way to go. Let's get to the news van, right? You're on a sub-basement, right? Parking garage area, the sort of thing where cars come from street level and park in this huge parking garage. So you're still a few floors below the actual surface level. Now, you've kind of snuck through a few levels on your way up here from some tunnels, but mostly just been abandoned cars. But you find, after your diligent search, the KSAF news van. What do you do?
Do we have names and descriptions of our targets?
Yeah. You have Karen Murphy, who is the news correspondent. She's the person with the microphone. You have a cameraman. We'll call him Jason Westfield. Yeah. And then you have the driver. That's we'll call him Alexander. Anybody have a good Russian name for Alexander?
Petrov.
Petrov. And then we have Jerry, who's the tech guy. Jerry. Give me one more last name. I should have prepared all these people's names.
Benjamin.
Jerry Benjamin. 2 last names, or 2 first names, can't trust him. He's the tech guy. He kind of operates all the tech stuff inside the van while Jason and Karen are on the outside.
Are they all human?
Let's say Alexander is an orc. Jerry is a dwarf.
I love Jerry being a dwarf.
Perfect. Alexander, he has a Russian accent. Jason is our camera guy. He's African American, human. And Karen Murphy with the bright red hair. That is the news team that was out on this. They were probably just covering some local story about Valentine's Day savings at the Renraku Arcology Mall.
The mall at the Renraku, it's open to the public?
Yeah. The first couple floors of the arcology are usually open to the public. This includes a mall. There's also like an amusement park.
So it's almost like Mall of America.
It's like Mall of America.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and there's even a zoo inside this place. It's quite big. In that Google Drive folder, there's a picture of the arcology from the outside. It kind of looks like a ziggurat, like a big old pyramid, but it takes up a big chunk of the Seattle downtown metroplex. And it's kind of the first of its kind. Nobody has really managed to execute this level of structure. It has over 300 floors. It really is a corporate city within a building.
Okay. Ratatat, if you wouldn't mind, please check the hard drives, see what we can get secure as far as footage. Synchro, if you wouldn't mind, surely they've got some kind of low jacking for their staff so that they can track the direction of a camera from inside the van or the direction of the microphone. Could you check and see if there's anything that could direct us towards people from here?
Got it.
I'm going to look for signs of a struggle. So I'm going to stake out a 10-meter area plus the interior of the van and look around.
Okay, so Sharp, you're kind of walking on the van first, huh?
I mean, I think Sharp is doing a perimeter while I'm sorry, Arthur. What's your character's name again?
Synchro.
It's typed in, right? Synchro. Yeah. While Synchro and I sort of I head to the back door and he heads to the front, and we try to figure out if this van can tell us anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing the tactical breach. 3, 2, 1.
Well, we're not blowing anything up.
No. The action is blowing up. Get to the front door.
Yeah,
Alexander Petrov. Dead.
Oh.
Laying there, blood trickling out of his mouth, leaning against the back of the headrest. Dead. Open the back door. Jerry Benjamin. Lying there. Dead.
Oh, well.
So, what's your reaction there?
Yeah, so when I spot that guy, I'm like, hey, somebody's up here. Oh my God, he's gone, man. He's dead. I'm trying to find out what I can see. Was he shot? How was he killed? Trying to get beat on how he was killed.
Yeah. It looks like, I mean, you're kind of inspecting the body, right? You don't see any blunt force trauma. You don't see any bullet wounds, but you do see a little puncture wound on the neck.
Okay.
And you notice that the car window is open.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm trying to look around the body, look in the cab, see if there's any other anything else that looks like might give me clues on what happened here.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and roll 2d6 plus intelligence but I think your awareness skill is going to come into play here too.
Okay. So I got a 9 + 1 is 10.
Okay. Yeah, so you're going to be able to get a lot of information. You take a closer look at his body, and you see he's got his veins are like especially dark, like they've maybe had some sort of toxin injected into him or something. That's what caused his death. But you look around the car's exterior, and you don't see any like footprints or any disturbance here. So that's interesting to you. The keys are in the ignition. It's not running. It's got 3/4 tank of gas. You have registration, any kind of that information. You have Alexander's favorite brand of e-cigarette, sitting in the console there.
Okay.
That's about it. How about Rat-a-tat? What are you checking out?
So I opened the back door and I see the dwarf slumped over a console of some sort. Does it smell in here? Like, how long do I think he's been dead?
Oh, yeah, good point. Okay. It's been 2 weeks since this place closed down, right? I'm not very familiar with bodies decomposing and stuff as much, television as I watch, but I would say that the amount of decay you would expect for 2 weeks is not present. And you've seen a few decomposing bodies living in there.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, you're not sure if that means if he was killed recently. What happened here?
So I hear Synchro say, "We got one dead here in the front," and like I open the door and I'm kind of waiting, and I see the guy, and I go to like move the air away, and then I stop and like sniff, and I'm like tilt my head because it doesn't smell, and I'm like, what's going on here? And so I get out like a little charm. It's like has that kind of rainmaker noise to it where I kind of do it upside down. It has that little kind of rhythmic thing to it. And I come in and like if the dwarves' eyes are open, I close them and I lay him down on the seat and I start booting up the computer to see if I can see anything. And I'm also looking around the van. Does it look like an old van?
It's not bright and shiny. KSAF is not necessarily the most prestigious news network in Seattle. But it's what were you wondering about that? I guess I would ask.
I'm trying to figure out if this van has seen enough use that it could develop a personality or perhaps a spirit.
Oh, well, you know what? It's seen a lot. It's been on a lot of news missions. It's seen a lot of the streets of Seattle.
Yeah, like a lot of puppy shows, but also a lot of crime scenes, like a lot of stuff that gets dragged out for. And so I'm sort of chanting and thinking, trying to see if I can. It's almost like sonar, like I'm trying to cast out there. If I see anything, then maybe a name pops up in my head. But I'm also booting up the computer. Does it have any juice? Does it turn on?
Yeah, I think that the consoles here have access. Password.
And I look at it, and I look down at Jerry. How does hacking work in this exactly? Do I roll something, or do I like? Oh, Jerry, Earth-1 is not a good password.
I think I would just bring it down to a roll. If you're successful, that could mean you guessed it. It could mean you used a program to hack it. What do you think you're using here? Are you doing social engineering or are you doing technological?
I think my first instinct is to take a guess of who I thought Jerry was.
Okay.
Or sort of thing. Though to be fair, maybe I take a guess at Jerry is like, okay, let me get my bag. Because maybe Jerry has good encryption kind of thing. And then like I look down at Jerry and I'm like, you probably did your job. Shit. Yeah, I do like I try Earth Wand, and if it doesn't work, I bring my bag and like bring out like the hair net or whatever. My scalp is definitely shaved for ease of access, and I look for like a jackport or whatever, and I boot in if necessary.
So since you're using your gear, let's go ahead and roll with intelligence.
Okay.
But I want to cut over to Sharper. Sharper is not a person that someone can sneak up on. Is that correct?
He sure wants it to be correct. He has stealth, but not awareness.
Well, I think that your stealth probably teaches you how to stay hidden, right?
Yeah.
Staying hidden probably involves hearing people come before they hear you. So, Sharper, you don't hear footsteps approaching, but you do hear a sound approaching from down this row of cars, around the corner somewhere, right? It sounds like a mixture of like a whirring and like a whooshing. It's like a
like a hover vehicle.
Yeah, something like that.
So I'll do a double click on the comm and get out of sight.
Okay. Are y'all pro enough that you get that signal?
Yeah, we talked about it on the way in.
I think I clicked the comm. It says, "What does double click mean again?" Sorry, Sharper. I know you went over it.
It means get down.
Yeah, Sharper's comm doesn't make any noise because he's got it attached to an earpiece. Because otherwise you get killed by that sort of thing. Your cell phone rings in the field. That's the last thing that rings.
I feel like Sharper is like one of those like badasses that might even have like a sub-vocal microphone kind of thing.
Sure.
Maybe.
Well, it's on the agenda to get built into the jaw. We just haven't got there yet. Well, the problem is he's got this plastic jaw where they took out his old equipment. So, I mean, he's
look at the catalog.
Working on getting the whole band back together,
So Ratatat says hi, and he's like, "Oh, okay," and he closes the door.
Okay.
So Sharper's like crouched behind a concrete pillar, and there's like bang. He's like, "Sure,"
Do you slam that door?
I think he does.
I don't want to go too.
I think he says hi, and I like wrap my fingers and pull it close.
How about Synchro? Where are you hiding off at to?
Yeah, so I kind of hop across the body that's in the front seat and kind of get down in the front of the van.
And as you do that, Alexander's head kind of turns towards you and lolls at you. The eyes are staring like directly at you.
Yeah.
I basically want to wait until this thing comes into sight and see how it reacts to the van before I decide what I'm going to do.
So you're not too concerned about their stealth as much as yours.
If it like aggressively interacts with intruders, then we'll know something.
Let's have another cool thing about World of Dungeons, World of Shadows is a little GM tool called the Die of Fate. This is something that I roll to determine the nature of a situation if I'm not sure ahead of time how dangerous or charged it might be. I rolled that Die of Fate before we came into the back from our break. I got a 3, which is determining what this whooshing sound is. I'm going to say, Sharper, I want you to roll stealth for me for hiding and waiting to see what this noise is and what it's going to do with the van.
So what is that based on? Is that quickness? I think we did establish previously.
Well, tell me a little bit more about your stealth. Is this you getting dexterously into a position quickly, reacting quickly, or is this you relying on your training and knowledge of stealth skills and practices to get into a good place to hide?
This is more about assuming that they're going to have poor hygiene with their line of sight before they move in. So getting somewhere that they're not going to sweep, the equivalent of standing behind the door.
Okay. So it's more about you're kind of figuring it out as opposed to just a quick reaction.
Blind spots. Yeah.
Okay. Roll with intelligence for me then, but your stealth skill will apply. But I want to get back real quick to this hacking roll that we're seeing from our friend Ratatat. What have you managed to find?
So yeah, I close this door and then I jack in. And I need to roll with intelligence, right? That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So 2d6 plus 1. Again, 8.
Okay. So you're getting in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Login screen accepts you. Information starts downloading to your data pad, right? You're getting news reports. You're getting video footage is downloading. It's about 50% of the way downloaded when you hear "brrrt, brrrt, brrrt, intruder detected, brrrt," and it's like a loud noise coming out of the speakers and in the van. And
in the van.
Yes.
I'm trying to yell. I'm banging on the like the cab between the back and the front. I'm like, what are you doing?
I have a question. Would this be considered an info skill check, or is that something else? Is it like more like lockpicking than info?
Tell me more about what you intended with the info skill.
Gather information kind of stuff. And if you want to say that this is not like the research as much as it is like, can you crack the lock or disarm the trap or the alarm? I don't think it would be info. Like breaking a password doesn't actually sound like info.
Well, I will say I failed to kind of broadcast what the consequences of your action would be beforehand. So when you were initially making this roll, were you thinking, oh, I'm going to use my info skill to gather some info? What were you thinking?
I mean, I was thinking I was breaking a password. And I don't think Ratatat would change his agenda just because of 2 clicks on the radio comm.
He might learn today. Okay, so we'll stick with that kind of result there. So what that means for you, loud noise, drawing attention to you, and you're still waiting on this these videos to download, which is kind of the juicy stuff. Sharper, you rolled a 5, you said, but you have the stealth ability, so that's going to be a mixed result. So you're going to stay hidden. Okay. But I'm going to make what's coming to find you a little bit worse. That whooshing sound you heard, as you're listening to it, it's getting closer, it's getting louder, and now it's starting to sound a little syncopated. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. That's because you're dealing with a crazy nightclub. No, you're dealing with 2 sources of sound now as opposed to 1. You're behind the pillar. What method are you using to keep an eye on this thing? You said you're kind of in a blind spot, right? So you're in the blind
windshield of the van.
Say that one more time.
The windshield of the van.
Oh, you're kind of using that as like your reflection to kind of see what's coming? So you see what's coming. You're correct on your idea about that hover noise. These are 2 hover drones, but they're not quite like any that you've encountered before. They're shaped almost like a boomerang, and they have several articulated joints that are kind of moving up and down like this, flapping. Almost looks a bit like a manta ray, maybe, would be one way to describe it. Jet black, like a stealth bomber. Okay. And there's 2 of them. You can't really sight where their sensor packages are. You're not really sure what they're equipped with. But there's 2 of them, and they must have some sort of auditory sensor because they seem to be zeroing in on the van.
That's to my advantage.
Okay. What are you going to do?
Because while they're zeroing in on the van, I am going to toss a concussion grenade right between them.
Oh, very interesting. Cool. So make sure you mark those off your gear if you don't have them already.
It's actually one that was given to me as a present from a friend.
Oh wow. This is a
Good friend.
sentimental
Good call.
grenade.
So yes, my son was like,
Very cool. So the effects of a concussion grenade, these are blinding, or they're auditory deafening, but not explosive in a combustible sense. What do you think?
I figure they've got bashing but not lethal damage. You know, they would have, compression and I mean play hell with, you know, software and electronics and stuff, but it wouldn't do much to a hard target. So that's why when you describe them as having all these joints and wibbly bits, I figure, they're probably not heavily armored on top of that.
Yeah. So this isn't going to blow up the van, but it might
No.
disrupt the flying mechanism of these things.
At most, we'll blow out some windows. At most. But really, I'm trying to throw it far enough away that the van's not in the blast radius.
Okay.
I don't want to be in the blast radius either.
Very cool. So this concussion grenade goes off. Several car alarms start going in the vicinity. Glass breaks out of windows. But you see these two drones are sort of knocked off kilter by the blast. And they sort of kind of lose their. You can see that they're trying to compensate with their servo motors, but they're having a hard time. You have a moment where they're sort of unbalanced.
I will take that moment to approach one at high speed, blade out, and bifurcate it.
So in the little side view mirror here, Synchro, you see the most badass motherfucker like hopping off of the hood of a car with like a big old samurai sword, getting ready to cut something in half. How are you going to respond? Are you staring at awe?
I'm a little bit like in awe of what's going on, but my cybernetic kind of ocular implant is already kind of beating in on that second drone, so I can tell there's like kind of one on the right and one on the left, and I'm going to try and pirate the second drone that's kind of wobbling.
Ooh, very interesting. So yeah. That's not exactly quite like hacking, but sort of similar to it, right?
Yeah, and it's with my control ability, I'm thinking that it might be.
I like to think that this is almost like the fantasy version of like mind control, right?
Yeah, I think
But
so.
Charm
I think
Machine.
Yeah, this is like Charm Beast, but like a machine instead, right?
Yeah, I think do I get a +1 because it just had a concussion grenade go off next to it.
Oh yeah, it's totally out of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So roll 2d6. Take that +1 that Sharper helped you out with.
7 + 1, 8.
Cool. And let's see. I think this is probably going to be an intelligence, would you say, or is this charisma? If we're talking about beast charm, what aspect of your?
I'm thinking it's charisma. I'm a pilot by feel kind of dude.
I love that. Okay, I mean it doesn't really make a difference, but it helps me understand a bit more where you're coming from, what the consequences might be. So add that 1 too.
Total of 9.
Oh, so close. First of all, Sharper, let's see how good your sword's work is. Roll 2d6 plus strength, right? I would say. And then you get your +1 from your Sever Bushido, and you get +1 from them being out of sorts thanks to your concussion grenade. Tell us what you get.
If I have a total of +2, then my total is 6 + 2, so that's 8.
Okay, very good. Oh man, I just remembered something I wanted to incorporate here. This is a pretty good time to do it because we have a 9. Okay. One little custom move I'm throwing in here for you guys. To represent the legwork that you performed before the mission, which is quite frankly a time-consuming and less interesting part of the mission, right, as opposed to the action. I'm giving a little flashback mechanic.
Okay.
At any point during this whole 4-session series, you have, you know what? That's not fun. Let's say every episode, you have one flashback token, we'll call it, right? Where you can say, this is the legwork, the training, the piece of gear, the meditation I did prior to this. Tell me what it was that you did to prepare yourself for this mission, and you get to add 1 to the roll.
Okay, cool.
So that can bring your 9 to a 10 if you want to use it now. We have about half an hour left, so no time like the present.
Yeah, I'll use that on my on the drone.
Okay. Sharper, you had a what now? An 8?
8.
Okay. Go ahead and roll your damage.
Okay. So let's see. Just to make sure I've got this clear, I believe a two-handed weapon is +1 damage, right?
I think so, yes.
So that means that for me, it'll be +1 damage, +1 from Cyber Bushido, so that'd be +2, and then +2 from Cyber Limbs. So that's a total of +4.
Yeah.
So I rolled a 3, so that's 7.
Okay. Let me do my own bit here. Let's see. Okay. You bifurcate this thing.
Yeah.
Aiming for a wing joint if I can.
So instead of cutting it directly in half, you cut, because the center piece is like one piece, probably has a sensor package on there. So you cut through one of the joints. Yeah. That thing goes down, but it still has one of its little wings flapping.
On the ground?
The drone, yeah. So the drone is still operational. It's only able to kind of go in circles. So you ended up with a 10 then, Synchro, for your control.
Yeah. Okay.
So what does that look like when you hop into and embody this drone?
Yeah, so I'd spent some time prior to this mission kind of focusing on the models of drones that even the ones that are rumored to be used by Renraku. So that's why I was able to kind of grab this one. And I can immediately kind of see as I'm wobbling around this giant cybernetic samurai dude slice the drone next to the one that's flying, and I get the feeling that it's a pretty graceful control, not extremely fast. It's meant more for like long periods of flight. I would say that they're lightly used for attack, but they're more of an endurance drone. They want these things flying out there for a long time. And I take it and I just basically control it to turn it around, and I start to put it on a nose dive to the ground.
Okay. Well, hey, it's just a drone, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about what you feel too, right? So yeah, you're right about that grace, maybe lacking in speed, but it has that endurance capability. You also have this feeling kind of like in your stomach and chest, basically, kind of like bad heartburn.
Okay.
This drone is capable of exhaling fuel as fire.
Whoa.
It's got a big fuel tank. Part of that's for endurance. So it can drop that payload of fire. It's going to affect its endurance capabilities. But hey, it's got that big tank. Might as well find a way to weaponize it. And you also can kind of determine that you've seen some sort of similar Renraku prototypes, right, of hover drones and things like that. But none of them were quite like this.
Okay.
So this seems to be, it has and even upon looking at them, right, it has this very almost organic look to it, almost biological. Right? It's not, but it looks smoother and rounder than lots of other drones. But Sharper, there is a bifurcated drone on the ground, and it belches a column of fire at you. So go ahead and roll d6 plus 2 damage, and it is ignoring armor. Unless your armor is fire retardant.
It's armor. I mean, it's not like specially treated to resist flame. So that's 8 hit points. And neither of my armor points works.
Awesome.
And there's no dodging. It just gets me.
I don't think you were expecting it to breathe fire at you.
No, I really wasn't.
Normally you cut things in half and they die.
Not in Shadowrun.
So you have a very disrespectful drone on your hands, and it just breathed fire at you. How do you respond to that? You think you're muted, but
by leaping and rolling on the ground to get on the other side of the van from it.
Pretty good idea. Synchro. You just what did you drive the drone into?
So I kind of turned it away from our direction, like almost in the 180 degrees, and basically putting it on a nose dive, maybe 150 feet from us.
Okay. Or into the other drone, up to you.
Yeah, I guess where is I'm just afraid.
Oh, that's true.
I was hoping that we would be able to take, these basically intact so that we could learn something about what we're up against here.
Problem is, once I'm kind of in this drone, I'm kind of immobile. I'm worried, if I kind of disconnect from it, I'm afraid that it's gonna.
Can you turn it off?
I would say you've got about all the information on it that you can get from embodying it, right? Its deepest, darkest secrets, so to speak, because you're inside of it. So I think you're perfectly capable of blowing it up.
I'm going to try and just keep it away from, I guess as I'm looking at where Sharper is in reference to this other drone, how close is he? How far is that flame shooting from the injured drone?
Well, I'm bad with distance. 20 feet.
Yeah, so I'm gonna run into the ground 150 feet away, because like you said, I could tell that they use this fuel for fire purposes, and I can kind of see in the distance some sort of fire just occurred. So I don't want to risk it hitting him or us or anything. So I'm trying to crash this thing.
So you fly away. You see the exit sign with the arrow, and you annihilate yourself. Good move. Do you hop out at the last moment so that you don't suffer any sort of neural feedback from that?
Yeah, I disconnect just before it's we're about to go terminal.
Sounds good. Your feed cuts out, and you hear from your own natural human ears a fireball and a crash. There's still a little drone here on the ground, but your files are still downloading, Rat-a-tat.
Can I talk about my avatar?
Please.
We talked about login screen, right? And I believe it's like a reboot kind of era where you have that 2D plane of a login screen, and my character is looks like Rocket Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy or something. Where
little raccoon guy.
Yeah, a little digital spritey raccoon with what looks like either a bazooka or a keyboard, or maybe both. And I'm just looking at it, right? And I do the weird thing where I open my eyes even though I'm not supposed to, and I have the VR feed meshed over, and then I'm open my eyes and I see the inside of the van. I look over there, and maybe I hear like an explosion or like some beeping.
Yeah.
But like it makes me nauseous to do it, and I can't, like, if I jack out now, I'm just going to be even more nauseous. So I just close my eyes. I'm just like, come on, download.
Okay. So it's up to you, Sharper. You've extinguished your body. There's a fire-breathing, half-beaten drone.
Okay.
Time for execution, huh?
So is it like spinning on the floor? Is that the...
It's kind of like flopping like a dead fish a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe trying to turn to you, but it's going pretty slow.
Well, yeah, I'll just pop out the bow and shoot it.
Oh, yeah. You're keeping your distance this time.
Well, you get turned into a Roman candle once, shame on the drone.
I think that it is in such a state, and you are so trained that it's not difficult for you to put the nail in the coffin here, right? And you're able to hit it right in the sensor package, eliminated circuitry, and it stops moving. Doesn't blow up though, because don't want you blowing up the van. Okay. So Sharper, your burning hair is a little bit burnt. And Synchro, you're back in the driver's seat, the passenger seat here, eyes are open. Mm-hmm. You're still treated to Alexander's judgmental post-mortem gaze. And Rat-a-tat, your download finally completes.
All right, and I rip off my head net and I walk outside and I have my pistol and I'm like, I'm ready. Where? And I just see like fire.
You have some time now to review the footage, review the info, right? A lot of chaos, a lot of screaming, a lot of running, right?
Yeah, I take out because I'm trying to have as little cyberware implanted as possible because it messes with my like mana flow or whatever. So I have like some Google glasses. They're very old, but they run the videos on in front of me, and I'm sort of embarrassed because I think they make me look uncool. So I don't really let anyone see me with my Google glasses as I'm reviewing the footage.
They could have been awesome, man, if they'd only worked on the form factor. You see KSAF news correspondent Karen trying to figure out what's going on, what the situation is occurring here. You see corporate security ushering people around.
And so the shutdown in this footage has already began?
Yes. Or it's happening. Something is happening inside. Something chaotic. There's the corporate security for Renraku. They have the sort of plainclothes, like black uniform, mall rent-a-cop guys who walk around and keep the peace on the lower floors where the public can come in. But their elite security team and forces are down here during this situation.
So I see like Red Samurai?
Yes, they're known as the Red Samurai, so-called because stereotypical 1980 Shadowrun, of course, the Japanese security team is going to wear samurai armor from hundreds of years ago. But yeah, you see them sort of ushering people around. They have very nice gear. I think that Karen tries to interview one of them. And he looks at it, he grabs the microphone, and he crushes it.
Oh, okay.
And the camera...
Does his hand look like cyber?
He's wearing like black gloves.
Okay.
So it's hard to determine what's underneath. But the strength of the grip is strong enough to shatter the microphone.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
And he has like a black lower face mask, right, that kind of comes out. He's got the the helmet with the curves and the little horns and whatnot. And you see he has these very striking blue cyber eyes, bright blue cyber eyes.
All blue, no whites.
Yeah, the iris and the pupil, all of it's bright blue. And you see them start pushing Karen around, and you see one of them grabs the camera out of Jason's hands and kind of tosses it to the ground, and you see the two of them being sort of ushered off, manhandled by corporate security. And the camera's still lying there. You see people running towards the entrance, and then you start to see gunfire. You start to see bodies. Gets pretty gruesome from there. It's all taking place in the mall.
Yeah. I think I pull the glasses off after the gunfire like goes off, and then like I press the comms. It says, "Sorry about the AFK there. Got the files. Going to throw them up on the party Slack or whatever. A little bit gruesome, but if you're looking for info on guard loadout, you can probably glean something." And I kind of throw it up there, and then I don't really like finish my statement or whatever. And I turn back to the van, and then I get my rainmaker again, and I'm trying to find that name. If I can find the name of a spirit that maybe lingers inside this vehicle.
So is this like your ritual? You're trying to conjure the spirit?
Yeah.
Doesn't that take like an hour?
Yeah.
So what
Then
I'll
you're
say
gonna
is,
do that by yourself, because I don't want to hold still that long.
Well, I was hoping that your burns or whatever would slow you down. I don't know.
do you all take an opportunity to find a safe place to sort of hide and review the footage and consider your next plans?
Well, before we leave the van, I'm gonna take photo documentation of the dead people. Plus, I'm gonna take a blood sample, because if we were hitting them, that's the evidence we'd have to have. So
That's your expertise, I might imagine.
well, you want to make sure that they were dead. They're gonna ask stupid questions. So you got a blood sample, you got a picture.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna frisk Petrov and see if he's got a wallet, device, anything on him.
Also, one of the things that I wanted us to get from the van, if we could, is if there's any way that they've got the personnel low-jacked that we could track them from the van or get any indication of where they might be.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the van is capable of driving, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we
maybe not capable of going anywhere?
Take it some distance away from where we had an altercation with the drones and park it, and then then I'm okay with this spending a little time.
So you find a nice.
I just don't want to stick around where we shot up some guards, because they tend to send guards to see what happened to the guards.
You have a nice shadowed corner of the parking garage, maybe one where the lights are out or something like that. And you're looking through Alexander's personal comm link, and you see the picture. It's a picture of him and his husband and their child, right? And yeah, it's just sort of a correspondence like, hey, arrived on scene. Karen and Jason are heading upstairs to do it. We're gonna keep doing our work down here. I'm gonna keep the van running. We got a busy day. Was just like last correspondence with KSAF, and then there's like texts from like them, like, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?" Right? Nothing.
Okay.
But his last texts were sent 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
So these bodies have been here for the 2 weeks, but they haven't decomposed like they would have.
Well, I know from my check earlier there's no like screens or anything up there, or any way for us like that I can see to tracking these two employees, right? At least in the cab at this point.
Probably not in the cab, but I bet in the back.
So maybe while we're driving over to our shadowy corner in the parking garage, I try to find if there's any GPS or like radar for.
Let's do your spirit
team.
thing. Sharp, are you cool with doing GPS? Can we do
Sure.
that?
Yeah, I'm all about tradecraft. Sure.
Is that cool with you, Aaron?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So you're gonna find. Actually, I don't know why it was so important for me to delegate this to Sharper because I'm giving you the information for free anyway. So, you have. It's almost like a compass, I would say. You're not able to get a clear three-dimensional blip. It's not like telling you exactly where to go. It's maybe showing their position horizontally, right? But it can tell you maybe like which corner that they're in. But you do currently see there's a steady blink, and they're not moving at this time.
All right. See, this is good. So I have a job for our hacker. Unless the rigger can help with this, I mean, I'll pull him over. Here's the thing: we now know that they're generating a signal. If we can isolate that signal, scrub it through, and access Renraku's tracking system, then we can get a much clearer picture. If we can home in on what is broadcasting, is that possible to do?
Anything is possible with dice, and failure included.
I tell them I'm not that kind of tech whiz, man. I'm all about moving things.
Fair enough. We'll wait till our raccoon gets back.
Our raccoon is currently deep in a meditative sort of ritual. Tell us a little bit more about that. I know you have your rain stick. You're searching for that name. What sort of posture do you assume? Are you chanting? Do you have incense? What does this look like for you?
I mean, it's a little bit of a dance kind of thing. I try to hide how much of it is a dance, but like the rhythmic thing is like a little head bob, and basically it's sort of awakening my third eye vision or whatever, and I'm looking around trying to see if there's any sort of like the spirits come from like use, right? If there's no human activity, if it's a brand new car, there's nothing there. There's no energy to pull from, but something that's seen use and has been active can develop a persona, a sort of spirit of man, and I finally get like a ping off of it, and like trying to think, we'll call it like an Aries Astro, and
the van itself.
Yeah, the van itself, which it goes by its model name or whatever, right?
Right.
But it's like News Van Astro or something. Yeah. It's definitely like flavored by its by how it is used.
Yeah.
And I do my little dance for a bit, and then I kind of summon it forward. Yeah. It's sort of like I say its name, and after I say its name, I have like a little bit of power over it, and I kind of draw it forth onto like the material plane, so to speak.
You know its true VIN number. I won't make you roll for this because you're in a moderately safe situation as far as you know, even though this is an extended period of time. But I'm going to roll the die of fate to see what Astro's sort of, general mood is at this time. So when I roll the die of fate, a high result is good for you.
Oh, okay.
A low result is good for me. You have a 2. So Astro's coming out of the thing, not feeling super happy. Astro had a really good relationship with Alexander. Alexander may not have known it, but Alexander treated this car like his child, right? While you were up there, Synchro, you saw. Tell me what, how Alexander kind of made that front dash his own.
Yeah, I mean, he armor rolled that thing every day. I could tell when we were driving it to that shadowy corner that it was beyond just the regular oil change kind of maintenance. He really kind of put some time into this van because he knew it was his job and he took pride in his work. So
Yeah, absolutely. He has family to take care of at home. He doesn't want to jeopardize that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start with kind of a sad Astro speaking to you. So does Astro manifest himself then as a person, almost like a humanoid?
Yeah, I think I mean, it could be like personified, right? Like, I'm not sure. It looks exactly like a transformer or whatever, but it's like the idealized version of it, right? So maybe it's someone with like a news anchor jacket, right? Or like the classic roadie tech guy that was always in the van and never really gets to be in front of the camera, but it's there supporting the team, kind of thing.
I'm almost thinking like, have you seen like these anime illustrations where it's like they like personify a person as like a little anime girl or whatever? Like maybe you have,
Like
maybe you haven't. I don't know. Right. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not saying that they look like an anime girl, but I mean, like maybe it has little like aspects of it that are automotive, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm like it's wearing, it's like has a chest and it looks like almost like a grill plate or something of a car or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it's got maybe some automotive features. I wouldn't be surprised if it has the decals sort of like almost tattooed on it in some way.
But it's definitely got like this like news channel vibe too.
I bet it has red hair, right? I bet Astro has red hair. And that's a recent addition, but after like Murphy has been riding along for so long, it's something that's like gleaned onto or something like that.
Does Astro seem to present a certain gender in particular?
Feminine, probably, I would think. And yeah, so Astro is closed off, right? I call and she's not really responsive. She's demure and she like materializes. I think Ratatat was ready for anger, and he's not really sure what to do with his sadness.
You just got to wait for stage 2 of grief, huh? So I actually kind of want to like leave that hanging for next week.
Yeah,
I want us to start off next week with your conversation with Astro and see what that looks like, because we're coming up on time here.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that description. That's a really cool scene. Okay, great first session. If you have a little time, I want to do a little debrief, and I want to talk about flags. So flags, if you listen to Gauntlet Podcast or Discern Realities or Dungeon World Podcast, you might have heard them discussing using flags as an alternative to Dungeon World bonds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bonds and flags aren't a mechanic that's present in World of Dungeons or World of Shadows, but it's basically something I've kind of grafted on there because it's cool, and it's a way for you to broadcast to other players ways that you want their characters to interact with your character. And when they do that, they get rewarded with experience. So it's sort of an incentivizer for them to interact with your character in a certain way. We look at Sharpers, for example, and he has 2 flags. The first is ask about a Bushido-related insight, and the second is try to connect based on events and media in the last 30 years. So what that means is Sharper wants you to talk to him about current events or pop culture references from like 5 or 10 years ago, because he suffered from amnesia and he gets to tell you about how he doesn't understand what you young kids are talking about nowadays. Is that right, Andrew?
Yes. I think I need to revisit that now that he's been in the world for like 5 years. But when he was fresh out from under the knife, then that was definitely a thing. Because you'd be like, oh yeah, Justin Timberlake, and he'd be like, I have no idea.
Right.
So the idea is you want it to be brought up so you can say, I do not know what you're talking about.
Well, right. I mean,
Awesome.
you can have some kind of fun conversations about, well, I mean, like Captain America and the Avengers. It's like winged monkeys. He's like, I get that one.
Yeah. Best line in the movie.
So, I want you guys to maybe we can workshop real quick 1 or possibly 2 flags for your character. Now that you've had a little chance to be in their skin, and Andrew, if you want to maybe adapt 1 or 2, you can totally do that too. But again, these are just ways that you want other people to interact with your character. If you look at the drop down, there's a list of them. These are from like the list of flags in the like original document, which is more for Dungeon World, but you might see something in there. They're also present in the data tab. If you like one of those, you can use those. And these change. So as your character changes and evolves, the way that you want other people to interact with them to reflect those changes might happen too. So we can kind of think about those. And if you're really still uncertain, you have a whole week to think about it. We can sit on that too. But if you have something in particular in mind, like not on the list, absolutely, we want to do that too.
Yeah, I think maybe I need a little time. Is that all right?
That's totally fine. Absolutely.
I think I got 2 flags. Maybe. I scrolled down and I found one that's I feel like is very rat-a-tat, which is tell someone else about my exploits.
Yeah, give us one really strong one, so that we can at least latch onto that. So you want Sharper and Synchro to tell other people about your exploits?
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's going to come up much because I'm not sure how many sane, normal people we're going to find in this House of Horrors.
Well, but I heard that is give you an opportunity to brag.
Yeah, I think that's more it.
Yeah.
I think it's less about
you, just opening up a conversation. It's like, so what do you think about that data port? I mean, is it possible to pull that information through such a narrow bandwidth? He could be like, let me tell you about narrow bandwidth.
Yeah. So maybe the flag is doubt my abilities, so that I can correct you.
I think, just, trigger bragging rights might be kind of the thing. It's like, give me an opportunity to brag.
Tell me the odds. So I can tell you not to do that.
One of the things that we talked about after the last debrief was to not make it something you can do in one line, just a throwaway phrase, but something that requires, context in a scene.
Yeah.
And I think that, coming up with a reason that you would have a chance to talk about cool stuff you've done is something that we could do in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I like that.
Something so esoteric, that's why I'm like, talk about Bushido. That could take the form of asking for advice or, having a question about the past. There's a lot of ways that could come up.
And I love the writing approach to things, right? So if you see, like, you can say, I kind of want to have a scene where Rat-a-tat talks to Sharper about his Bushido, right? Or I want to compare and contrast our views on things. I want to have a scene. I really want to hit Synchro's flag, right? We could say that out of character. Or you say, and we can move towards that scene.
Yeah.
Well, because really, once there are flags, then I prioritize hitting them. That's my mini game within the game.
And you want to try to make that the setup a little transparent, right? If you're trying to tee them up for that, talk about narrow bandwidth moment, sometimes it's good to either make that very obvious with your description if you just want to do it narratively, or by saying, hey, I kind of want to hit your flag.
Yeah.
That's not going to take anybody out of the fiction for too long. So that's totally a good move.
That's cool. I think the other idea of a flag for me was going to be something about like talking about the hardships of day-to-day, the hardships outside the run, right? Like I've been eating macaroni and cheese for like 2 weeks because that's all I can afford or something. Or like I haven't gotten real cable for a while, so I've been watching reruns for a long time, and this is the one show I've been watching, which is more like just not the hardships, I guess, but like the discussing the quirks of downtime.
Yeah.
Or because I guess like what I'm looking for is to contrast it, right? Because I feel like a lot of these guys, like retired corp merc and retired stunt driver, they're both out of their like main line of work, but I think they're probably better off than Ratatat. And so just to contrast those kind of lifestyles, I think would be fun.
So you'd like to see a scene where you come to a vending machine and they're like, "Oh, gross, soy puffs or whatever," and you're like, "Soy puffs? I've had rat on a stick for the past week," or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it also it would be fun to contrast with we're inside a company town, like an Arcology, which is like some of the most advanced tech out there. I'm sure there are like coffin rooms here that are only big enough for you to lay down, but I also think we'll find some luxury
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that Ratatat brings that angle because I really good bring the nature of this horror into relief. Because it's kind of funny comparing and contrasting the horror of like, oh no, my smart mansion has been taken over, where it's like, well, at least you have a mansion. I like that angle.
Yeah.
Maybe if you work with this mansion and give into its demands, you can have a good life.
Right. Yeah. So, Arthur, be thinking about during the week stuff for synchro. I know it's a little challenging for you not being able to access the sheet as easily. So if you get access to like the computer or something as a way to work at that, look at that.
Okay.
Let me know.
Yeah, I've got a copy of Flags from Dungeon World. Same kind of gist too.
So be thinking about that during the week. Okay. We'll probably cover that briefly at the beginning of next session. And so the mechanic for hitting a flag when we all kind of see that that's happened, or even if you just recognize it yourself, make a little note so that you don't forget for the end of the session. And I'll let you guys keep track of your experience, but you earn each level basically 10% towards the next level. So you need to get to 25,000 experience for level 3. So when you hit a flag, you get 1,500 because you start at 10,000.
Okay.
That math makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you hit somebody's flag, make sure you take a note because you're going to add 1,500 experience to your...
Do they get XP for overcoming challenges like those 2 drones?
Yeah, we'll definitely do that too. I'll have to think of a number, and I'll get back to you on that. I don't really have anything on top of my head.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't need it right now. You can let us know. But so we would get 2,000 for the advance. Is that how that works?
Yep. And make sure you write down 2,000 for the advance.
Well, I mean, you can go ahead and lump that into the stuff that the Game Master is giving us, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah. So I'll just keep that in mind for next week when I tell you your...
Or in between,
Yeah. It's just 9:03 right now for me, so just 3 minutes after start time. Time zones are weird. Anybody have any final thoughts or anything to carry into next week? Feedback, things you liked, things you didn't like?
No, I think it was great.
I think there's a nice group chemistry here. I'm excited to go forward. Yeah, I think we'll probably... I have no thorns so far. I've had fun, so to speak. I will suggest everyone check out Altered Carbon if you need some cyberpunk flavor or whatever.
Yeah, I've been hearing good stuff.
That's some pretty fun stuff. Pretty generic cyberpunk, but still cyberpunk. So
maybe check out Bright. Maybe don't. Also on Netflix. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews, but the setting it proposes is basically kind of Shadowrun, or near future mixed with fantasy, what that shakes out as. I haven't watched it, but
I watched it.
What do you think, Andrew? Did you like it?
I think your mileage may vary. I think it really depends on what you like, because this is a really broad circus tent. So when people say I like the Shadowrun parts, it's like, well, what does that even mean? Um, personally, I think they would have been better off not using any famous actors so that they could just stretch their legs on Netflix, you know? Because you put somebody expensive on it and you're limiting what you can ever do with it. But I thought it was okay. I mean, it had fun parts. If you like Stone Cold Alien Murder Elves, which I think we all do, they do that well.
Check.
They do both cringy and fun world building with orcs. So what's your tolerance for cringy orcs? I don't know. They have a little fun with making magic magical, which I appreciated. So, I mean, you know, your mileage may vary.
Cool.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all again for joining us on the first session. I thought it was a dynamite first session. I was very happy with it. And next week we will start our scene with Astro, figuring out a little bit more information there. But I think I'm going to stop the broadcast now.